Have you ever had a situation where somebody says something happens, and you can recognize that how you're responding to it is larger than the situation actually calls for? Or am I the only one? We're going to talk about that moment today. I'm going to talk about that moment today. We're not going to. I'm going to. That's how this works. But first I want to tell you how it came about, right? So some of you may know how I start my day is with a Zen koan. And then I meditate on it. But before I meditate on it, what I usually do, and a Zen koan, for those of you who don't know, is a teaching story that usually makes no sense to the mind. And so the idea is to pierce it and to see what's beneath, trying to make logic out of something that can't have any logic. And so what I've done recently for the past, year, almost now, I guess, is take that koan, put it into chat, GTP, and then we begin a debate over the meaning of the koan. And so on Monday, I put in the koan that came up. Chat said was the meaning of this koan is how to, before any response or anything that comes up in you occurs, there's this moment that's clean. And I said, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible for a human being to show up without its history, without our history. That every moment we have, we bring our history to. And that began an entire week of looking at that, of looking at what does that really mean in the practice of science of mind or in the practice of Zen or whatever spiritual practice you have. What does that mean in terms of what you're bringing to it? And so this is what I came to, all right, over the week, is just looking at all the different ways in which every moment I am bringing not just me, but my entire history, 70 years of history, to that moment. And that if we try to practice in a way to put that aside, to think that we're above it, we're larger than that, something has higher meaning than that, we are spiritual bypassing. That isn't the actuality of what it is we're actually bringing to a moment. But what is true is as we bring our entire history with us, what we don't want is our history to be in charge. We don't want it to have the keys to the house. Because there's always something there besides our history. Always, whether it's a breath, our body, a new thought. And so what we teach here is new tools that maybe you haven't had before in terms of how to find those new thoughts, how to be with those new thoughts, what to bring forth that might not be in the old history. Somebody comes up to you as you're in the middle of doing something, and maybe they say, "Are you sure you want to do it like that?" And my mind goes to all the times my dad, thought he could do it better. All the times my mom was sure I was going to do it wrong. The teacher that humiliated me. The girlfriend. All the history that comes forth in that. And if I react and respond from that, oh, of course I responded this way. Of course this is what came forward. Of course this is how this played out. You know my history. How could you speak to me that way given you knowing what I've been through? Then what we're doing is letting our history have the keys to the car, have the keys to the house, leading the way. And that's the part we actually have choice about. It may not feel it all the time. Doesn't feel that way all the time to me. And so what I've been looking at is what I'm calling a gateway. There's this gate, and it has a lock on it, and each of us has the key. But we don't always remember that. We don't always remember that we actually have the key to do something different here and invite something new in. Instead, what happens is we play out things the way we've always played out things, and then we wonder why life plays out the way it's always played out. And then maybe we even beat ourselves up because that's part of the old pattern too, right? A lot of us have this critic that will beat ourselves up for, oh, I know better than that. How come I'm behaving that way? And that's still part of the history playing. And so that's the practice. The practice is, can we get into that moment in any way possible to question what we've always felt was inevitable in terms of our behavior, in terms of how the circumstance is going to play out? Can we even ask the question? And the question that I came up with is, what's here besides history? What's here besides my history? My breath, my body, where it feels tense, maybe a new thought. Maybe a new thought like when I'm saying to myself, oh, this always happens. Does it? Just questioning. Does it? I mean, those are great words as red flags, right? Always, never. You hear those words coming out of your mouth and you know that's your history talking, not all of you. Now, your history is a part of you. Like one of the things I thought about this week was how your history's at the table, but don't let it sit at the head. You really have a choice there that sometimes it doesn't feel like we do. And so we start playing out what's always been played out instead of even that slightest little practice, right? Because that's where we got to start small. I was walking with Eric out at Elk Island yesterday, and we were talking about how practice really does start small. And it's sometimes we look at practice and we think there should be some like great cathartic thing. That's why we love workshops, right? Or dropping acid. We love, or mushrooms or whatever. Well, we love those big cathartic changes. When actually the practice is small. It's these little moments, ordinary, everyday moments, where we can just catch ourselves a little bit and go, wait a minute, maybe this person didn't mean what my dad used to mean when he said that. Maybe this person didn't mean what my mom used to say when she said that. Maybe there's something new here. And that maybe in and of itself is the practice. To just give ourselves that little window, gateway, to just look at things just a touch different, because once we've cracked it, now we can build on the crack. Now something can grow there, something new, something that is more who you are now than always bringing forth who you've always been. Now, I'm clear that through these practices, I have healed some of my old wounds, at least some. So there is some metabolizing that takes place, but I don't know that that means I'm carrying any less history with me around it. You know, I had the thought about history as the library, right? We carry with us in every single moment a library with books that were useful, that are books that are sacred, books that we should have given back a long time ago, books that hurt, books that feel violent and destructive inside ourselves, to the point in which maybe we don't even recognize it as stuff. Yeah, I have listened to people be critical of themselves, and then when I say, what you're doing is like hitting yourself over the head with a bat. You are being violent with yourself, that they've been doing it so long they don't even feel it as that anymore. They're numb to their own violence, to themselves. And then wonder why others react more upset when they do the same thing to somebody else. I was just telling you my opinion. I don't know why you're getting so upset about that. And that's just because you're used to beating yourself up. So you don't even get that that's what that is. I've noticed that about myself, that I am so used to beating myself up that sometimes when I say give my opinion and watch the other person get hurt, I'm like, why are you hurt? I'm just giving my opinion. And now I've realized that's because I've been beating myself up so long, I don't even feel that that's what I just did to somebody else. But that's the history we carry. And when that happens, we've let it lead. And so that's the practice, right? The practice isn't to get rid of our history. I don't think that's possible. We're not clean slates. We do all these things to think, okay, this is a new moment. This is a new day. This is a new year. We are big on wanting that slate clean. It ain't going to happen. But you could bring the newness of who you are to that moment with your history and make something new. Because we do all the time. We're such creative creatures, right? We are such creative creatures. So one of the ways in which Ash and I practice, or we used to do this a lot, we haven't really done it much lately because I think we're getting beyond that place, but we used to say to each other a lot, I'm not your mother. I'm not your dad. And that reminder has been very helpful for us. To look at because, we tend to marry people, to get a relationship with people. And by the way, this is all about relationship. Everything I'm saying here has to do with the fact that we are human beings in life, in relationship, even if we live alone, even if we live with others, in community, with our pets, with our relatives who we don't want to return the phone calls of, or or the politics in the world. You think you don't have a relationship with the politics in the world just because you've decided not to look at the newspaper? I was walking with somebody the other day who says, I don't really talk about politics, and then talked about politics for the next 50 minutes. It's a relationship. We have it with everything going on in life. We have a relationship with water. We have a relationship with air. We have a relationship with everything. And so that's why this becomes important, so that our history doesn't become our response. It can be a memory as part of our lives, but once it becomes the response, it's taken over. It's now in charge. It's now doing what we thought, we were doing. When it It's not us. And then sometimes I've listened to people make a stand for their history, right? This is who I am. Okay. You get to be that. But there's more to you than you might realize. You're everything you've brought forward in life with you. But you're also everything you get to choose right here and now, in this moment. And the practice, right? The practice is so part of the practice is not beating ourselves up, right? The other part is simply noticing without beating yourself up. So I'm in a conversation, Ash and I had a conversation earlier this week. And some of you may know that I'm training for a Spartan race, so I'm going to a gym, and I'm feeling a little insane about the idea that I think I can actually do a Spartan race. Given my squats aren't working with any weights at all right now. And so I had just gone to so I'm going to the gym twice a week. I'm working out. I'm seeing what I can do to make it for this race, right? I come out of the gym, I am exhausted. I am hurting all over my body. And I get a text from Ash saying, we need to have a really serious conversation. I'm like, okay, we need to have a really serious conversation. I can do this. Note to self, when you're tired and hungry, not a good time for a serious conversation. And some of you are going, duh, and I'm up here going, duh, and yet, there I was, I got home, I ate, I did not get a nap, I'm still exhausted. We get into this conversation, and it went south fast. And it was me, right? Me taking what she said through my history, and I even started saying stuff like, this always happens. All the stuff I'm up here telling you, don't do it. I was doing it just this week. And so Ash, in her brilliance, was like, maybe we should stop this conversation now and return to it a little later. And so I had enough wherewithal to go, great idea. And then got a nap, got rested, got myself clear, and then came back to the conversation, and we had a great conversation. And it was hard, and it was beautiful. Because then I was able to not have my history lead. I promise you, if a conversation goes south, your history or the other person's history is leading. But here's the thing about that. If the other person's history is leading and you point that out, that conversation's going further south. So I don't recommend that at all. We each have to discover for ourselves what it is we want to bring forth. And when we do, that's when brilliance can happen. And it doesn't matter how large the trauma is. It is still possible to have alchemy with it, to transform it into gold, even with the history being there with it. My favorite example of this is a woman I met who runs a very large organization, who started a very large organization, founded it and runs it. And we met and we talked, and she was telling me how this all started because her son died. And her son died of a disease that nobody was really working on because it was so rare. And so she started this foundation to work on this disease, named it after her son. And at the time I had met her, she said that she had saved thousands of kids' lives. And that even though she couldn't get to the place where she was calling her son's death a blessing, she was at the place where she could see the power that came from it. That how she was able to transform her life because of it into something good and beautiful. Now that's taking history and turning it into something gold. That's what's possible. That's what we do when we practice. And she was telling me she still mourns her son. She told me how the first 2 years after he died, every day, putting one step in front of another, how starting the organization reminded her of her son every day. And so she was facing her grief every day she showed up for her own organization. And how rough that was. So this was not something that transformed overnight. This is something that just took time, step by step. So what we bring forth in our lives, in our history, tends to be what I call old tools. We bring forth these old tools that were useful at some time in our childhood. Maybe sometime in our young adulthood. They actually help to protect us, make us safe, keep us strong. And so when we're acting out, it's from one of these old tools that actually worked at some point. Oh, if you're somebody who needs your point heard, there was a time in your past when you were little that you didn't feel heard at all. And yelling and making noise and standing up was the only way you knew. And what we're working on now is new tools. Why we teach these classes is new tools. So that you can see, oh, I'm bringing this old tool forward. That's why I'm behaving this way. I've been triggered into this old trauma, and the way I'm responding is what I needed to do at one time. I wonder if there's another way now. I wonder if this person didn't mean all those things that this meant to me in the past. I wonder if I can transform this alchemize this into gold. Because when we do that, that's when we're not only transforming ourselves, but life. That's what I've noticed. And that's the invitation. That when you're triggered, in any day situation, this doesn't have to be big stuff. It could be a little trigger. And I would highly recommend starting with little triggers. Right? The little times, the little annoyances. Start there where it's not so overwhelming. With a practice of simply asking, what's here besides my history? If I'm annoyed, the odds are there's history here. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes in the present moment, there isn't somebody said something that hurt. Somebody did something that crossed the line. Somebody behaved in a way that was not okay. That doesn't mean that's not going on, but your response, knowing are you coming from a response of your history, or are you coming from a clear no now? Are you walking away because of your history, or are you walking away because that's what's yours to do now? Knowing the difference is the practice. And learning that practice is not easy. It's a day by day, moment by moment, what you bring forth in your life and what is here now. And so the more we can be here now, boy, where have I heard that before? The more we can bring forth our practice into that now. And that's what I invite you to do. I invite you to ask yourself, what is here besides my history? And maybe it's only a breath. Maybe you're now in touch with your nervous system. And maybe it stops you from responding with a violence that was in your past that may not be what's called for now. Maybe you can say a truth in a way that's not unkind. Better ways, truth that is kind. Maybe you can come forth into that moment with something that was new, that you never had before. Or maybe you just recognize, like I did in the beginning of in that conversation I had with Ash this week, that I'm bringing in the old. That's a crack too. It doesn't mean you always catch it, especially in the beginning, and it seems even 70 years later. But it does mean you recognize it, so that then you can move forward from there. Because the recognition in and of itself, especially if you can make that recognition without beating yourself up. Because the key to everything we do is loving ourselves. I got to tell you, there's nothing greater than that. The more we can love on ourselves, no matter how we're behaving, in the recognition of how we're behaving, not getting into why am I... Whoop. Why am I still behaving this way? Why am I still doing this? The beating yourself up part, that is the practice, is catch yourself. Don't do it. You see yourself beating yourself up? Don't do it. Stop. And think of it as a moment, oh, this is a moment I can love on myself. Oh, this is a moment I can love on myself. That's the practice. That's what I invite for all of us, including me. Thank you, and that's what I got for you this week.